All right. We're starting. All right, great. So today we are honored to have Will Chuchawat with us. As you guys have all read in the email, he is one of the co-founders of Vivotein, coming up with a new product, a new process by which we can reduce food waste and reuse food waste. I'll leave it to him to go into a lot more detail on that. And of course, this is actually a side project for him. Actually, one of an unlimited number, it seems, of 40 under 40 lists for top lawyers in M&A. So as if being an M&A lawyer wasn't busy enough, he's also created a new tech company on the side. So it's a great honor to have Will Chuchawat with us. So I'll turn over to, and we'll do this more conversational style. I'm not just going to turn it over and have you make you do a monologue, but really love to hear more about how Vivotein works and how you came across the idea to start with this product and how you joined this team as well.
Sure. So look, I think probably the easiest thing is to show you a bit of the teaser, and then that'll give you a quick overview of what we do. Because I just think when I tell people that I'm a worm farmer, people just wonder what is a worm farmer. So let me show you. Let me see if I can make sure I share my screen. If you could just enable me to share my screen, I'll go ahead and do that.
Yes, change the setting. So I will you co-host that. Great, now it should work.
Great, hold on one sec. Is that playing for you folks or no?
I see it. I don't hear any audio from it though.
Huh. I wonder how audio would work. Apparently it's not working with when you share the screen with audio. So you know what? We'll scrap that for a sec. We'll just go on the fly. It's okay.
Okay.
So let me unshare, stop share. So Vivotein at its core is basically a food security and a climate change business, right? We're trying to solve those two key fundamental problems for our future using food waste. So if you think about it, we're using food waste to help feed the world and help the environment. Now people may be a little bit turned off by how do you feed the world with food waste? Well, the problem is 1/3 of our food that we produce globally ends up in the trash before it even hits our plate. That's probably not going to change, unfortunately, just given the habits of people. I mean, as we've gotten, frankly, more resources and things have been more bountiful for folks in developed countries, we tend to waste food. And yet, when you juxtapose that with over 800 million people are malnourished around the world just today, and there's about 2 billion that's estimated that have food security issues, that it really shouldn't be that way. And then when you think about climate change, which has really come to the forefront, I think, in recent years, of course, people have been environmentalists for 70 years, but it's really, I think, coming to a tipping point now. One of the worst offenders for greenhouse gases is methane. People always think about carbon dioxide and how we reduce that. Methane actually is 84 times more potent than carbon dioxide. And where does methane come from? Well, it comes from food waste as it decomposes within landfills. And I know folks live around the world, but if you're in, for example, California, where I'm at, landfills are filled up. It's there's just not a lot of capacity left. And so you've got a growing food waste issue, and all it does is release greenhouse gases into the environment, which of course just ends up harming everybody, right? We're not safe just because we live far away from each other. The world is connected. For us, we were trying to figure out how do we solve these problems. And one of the things that we saw about several years ago, the business itself was originally founded about eight years ago by a man named Harut Arjayan. He was just raising flies, these black soldier flies, for reptile feed. Reptiles eat insects, right? And we looked at it and said, well, he was using trash to go feed these flies. And we said, you know what, if you're using trash, a problem, you're taking an input that's a problem, and your output is something that actually can be used beneficially for not just pets, but actually for aquaculture and for chicken feed and for pork and for hogs. So aquaculture just came online about 2018. And when I say it came online, it means the FDA approved the use of the black soldier fly for feed as aquaculture. If you think about aquaculture, the way that they've been raising fish to feed us is they scrape the ocean, and then they catch whatever they can, and then they grind it up into fish meal, and then they feed it to fish to raise fish. So you've caught fish to feed to us, which is incredibly inefficient and frankly destructive for overfishing. Fish meal is actually also used because it's the cheapest source of protein for feed for chickens. So they take this fish meal also and they feed it to chickens. Now, that's just not particularly a great use of resources. The other alternative source is soybeans, because in order to raise chickens and hogs and fish, you actually have to feed it proteins inputs so they can actually grow. So soybeans, I think a lot of folks realize, also has negative environmental consequences. Even if you do it at its best, at its core, right? You're using a lot of arable land, which could otherwise be used to grow crops that actually come directly to us, to be fed to us. Pesticides, water, shipping, et cetera. And a lot of it, unfortunately, happens in Brazil, which ends up taking land away from the Amazon. That's generally been the problem with soybeans. So we found this source, right? Unlimited trash available. Unlimited trash available. So, and then unlimited demand in terms of aquaculture, chickens. We need to raise more food to feed the planet, feed people. So a business where the COGS, the cost of goods, can actually be negative or zero, right? Because they pay you to take the trash. We process the trash by feeding it to the bugs. We grow the bugs. We sell it out in the market to aquaculture and to chickens. That was the genesis of the business.
So at the very basic point, everywhere I was, there's food waste, there's trash every place. So this could be done anywhere. I mean, so far as replicating this or scaling this, if you use the same methodologies you're using, you could do this globally. Or right now, are you only doing this in California? Is it just in Los Angeles area? Where is this happening so far?
Correct. So that's the global vision, right? Which is, before we're gonna run and fly, we wanna be able to walk. Meaning we have to get our pilot plant established and optimized. And we have a pilot plant currently in Ontario, California, which is east of downtown. So our pilot plant right now can process up to 30 tons of trash a day. Just think about that in terms of magnitude. 30 tons of trash. This is waste, right? That otherwise would go to a landfill. And then we raise per month. We actually have dry worms, and because we end up drying the worms for packing purposes. It actually ends up looking like sand because it gets desiccated, then it gets mulched, and then it ends up basically you sort of toss it out to the fish and to the chickens, and then that's how they eat it. We end up producing about 25 tons of dry worms per month. And so this business, right, within a self-contained, very relatively small 26,000 square foot facility, just in an industrial park in Ontario, California, by itself could basically replicated within anywhere, Southeast Asia, Latin America, Europe, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be in California. And that was the vision, which is if we get our pilot plant optimized and we figure out, great, this is how we can produce the worms most efficiently, then we can go ahead and start having these partnerships and discussions with municipalities in Sao Paulo or in Bangkok or in any other place where they have a lot of waste, which frankly is everywhere. That to me was the vision, which is having these public-private partnerships with municipalities who have waste issues and solving that problem for them. And along the way, we happen to get trash. Like we're taking their trash, which is their problem, and we're turning it into something good, and probably going to be creating a bunch of jobs in their cities.
Great. I mean, I'm thinking as well that a lot of the U.S. food waste is shipped overseas right now, isn't our U.S. or waste in general? Like, as you're saying, our landfills are full, so municipalities are spending a lot of money shipping this garbage overseas that they could just process and be able to resell then through your technologies.
Absolutely. You broke up a little bit there, Peter, but I think I got the gist, which was yes. Nobody wants our trash, right? In America, we say NIMBY, right? Not in my backyard. Who wants trash? Well, we want trash. Well, we actually can use it to go help feed the planet. It's one of the key things here for us is the U.S. actually requires it to be pre-consumer food waste, meaning it's not touched the plate, i.e. it was in a grocery store and that apple that they couldn't sell anymore, which ends up going to trash. We use that, but it doesn't have to be limited to that. In other places, such as in Europe, it's not required to be pre-consumer, meaning it could have been from a restaurant, for example, and it didn't get eaten. The bugs don't care whether it was eaten or not. They really eat everything. So in terms of how did I get started with this? So a few years ago, ran across Sarat, who was the founder, who was doing this on a very, very small scale, just for pet. Yes, Peter?
All the countries, a lot more of the food waste is coming from that post restaurant.
Peter, if you can hear me, I think you're cutting out.
Oh, I didn't say anything, but
Okay.
I heard you talking about meeting the root on a small scale.
Oh yes. So met him at a small scale. One of my other co-founders, Andy Tarosian, and I, we as Peter alluded to, I'm the global head of M&A for Shepherd Mullen. I close deals. That's what I do. And so I see a lot of different companies across the spectrum, ranging from like a Samsung or Northrop to private equity to banks like Wells Fargo, et cetera. This was not anything that I was looking to do. It was something that I became passionate about when I found the business and said, this is an amazing solution to a problem that everyone can really get behind, right? Solving trash, feeding people, climate change, whatever it is that you care about, it feels like it actually ends up having a really efficient solution. When we take the trash, our end product is basically worms that are used for feed, and also what's called frass. Frass is just it's bug excrement, bug casings that are as it sheds its exoskeleton, and it's basically a fertilizer. It's incredibly nutrient rich fertilizer, which we can also sell off. So, for example, in our little 26,000 square foot facility, which is our pilot plant, as we scale up, we can basically generate about 3.7 million $3.7 million worth of EBITDA from that one facility. And if you think about once we have that facility fully optimized, it's already running. It's already generating running revenue. But once we've have it optimized, we can actually go ahead and replicate it in any jurisdiction you can think of. So in terms of,
it's great. If you see the pilot, once you get this pilot started, can you?
Correct. And the pilot plant is operational.
Oh, that's great. I think should we just go? Should be interested in asking to dig more into this. If you don't mind, I would turn over to Dr. Adela Masiri for the first question.
Sure.
Hey, so thank you, Will, for this really nice presentation. And I was wondering about the current circumstances. So because there's a lot of manufacturers, farms, and all the stuff, they don't have waste per se. So it's good food, it's ready to be eaten, it will stay there for a while. However, there's a breakdown in the supply chain. So there is no way to get it to the consumer to begin with. Hence, they dispose of it. So maybe one interesting thing to scale up a lot is to address those farms and those food manufacturers to say the excess food that is not actually hitting the market, even before it actually goes bad, we can take it and transform it for you. What do you think of that?
Oh, absolutely. We've been talking to orchards. We've been talking to food manufacturers, for example, baking, lots of baking manufacturers, co-manufacturers for in the area. Any source of trash or waste is great for us, right? We can process it into a way that is feed for the bugs and then ends up being useful. And in terms of partnerships, we haven't even gone to, for example, we got a $2 million grant. This business has actually been well capitalized. We've raised about $8 million. $2 million of that was non-dilutive grants. $6 million came from the founders. I'm about 900,000 of that, and then we're actually building a business that is profitable, i.e., that generates EBITDA and has revenue and everything else. But we haven't actually even gone out to the various NGOs and nonprofits that actually would help support us in these types of endeavors, because there's a lot of money available to help, frankly, feed people and also solve trash problems.
That's awesome. And my other question is kind of like, what I understand, your operations are here local, right, in the States, correct?
Correct. Currently, it's in just outside of LA Metro.
Cool. So what are your plans to create a smaller, more economic version of that can be deployed in developing countries like in Africa and other places like that, where they do have waste as well and they cannot process that? Your solution should help in generating an outcome out of those, right?
Yes, we can. I mean, really, it ends up, frankly, I think it's actually probably better at a larger scale. So if you're outside of a large municipality, whether that's anywhere else in Latin America or Europe or Asia, that it actually ends up working well because they have so much waste, right? There's really an endless supply of waste, unfortunately. And there's an endless demand for protein overall. I know that around the world, it's gotten fashionable not to eat protein sources, but if you look in the past 15 years, protein consumption has outpaced population growth by the order of like 15%. And it's unfortunately probably going to continue to grow that way, because as economies come online and people get more wealthier, they tend to go to eat more protein. And the cheapest source of protein has historically been fish. But obviously we all know what problems are with overfishing, and fish stock's probably going to be gone in 50 years, et cetera. So we need other solutions to help feed people.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. I saw there were other questions in the chat. So yes, I think somebody had asked about the website. We're actually developing the website right now. Well, we had a website, and frankly, it wasn't particularly pretty and non-functional. So we wanted to make sure that we were getting that updated so that we can tell our story much better.
It's been a really, really interesting and the basics of what Vivotein's tool does.
Peter, I think if you're speaking, it's coming in garbled for folks.
Well, if you need any help with the site or any of those, just tell me. I'd be more than glad to help with those.
That's fantastic. We can always use more. Any emerging company can use more help, and that's really why. And that's really what we're doing right now, which is we've had a core investor base that is incredibly passionate about the enterprise, and we've not taken outside funding, but now we're taking a look to say, okay, well, look, who can help expand our horizons, whether it's through connections with feed sources or with municipalities that we can partner with, or with nonprofits that would be beneficial. This is a business that actually can be used for carbon credits, for example, which are very very useful for a lot of companies with ESG or sustainability goals.
Perfect. I have connections in Africa since I was born in Egypt, and I can tell you firsthand in Cairo and Alexandria and all these big cities, you have like Alexandria by itself is like 12 million people, and Cairo is like almost 30 million people living in one place. So there is economy of scale there, especially in waste management and so forth. That would be fantastic to get there. And I'm thinking also of like looking into the United Nations programs that support those, as well as the EU have grants for the Mediterranean and Northern Africa collaboration. So I'm gonna try to hit my Rolodex and see if anything comes up. I'm gonna connect with you on LinkedIn as well.
Fantastic, Doctor.
Thank you.
Definitely will. This has been a pleasure hearing this introduction to your technology, and I definitely want to hear updates as this pilot progresses, as you get ready to scale, because there's a couple other people on this call who are listening in who I think, as Dr. Dell mentioned, about international organizations who would be interested in this, hearing the updates, and a whole list of other people that would be happy to share this on with too when you're ready to scale this to other markets. With
Fantastic.
that, I want to thank you again for being with us today, and just in respecting the time that we've scheduled, and I know you've got more than a few things to do as well. we'll tie up the call now, but if anyone has any follow-up questions, people can feel free to email me, and I can forward them on to you, and you can follow up as needed. And I plan to post this to our YouTube channel within the next few days as well, and send the link to that.
Great. Thank you so much, Peter. Peter, thank you, and thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you all.